Good evening, everyone. This is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Today is the February 1st, 2026 edition. Of course, the beginning of Black History Month, which originally started off as Black History Week. And believe me, when it was started, we really needed it then, and we certainly can't live without it now. And it's 20 some odd days that we're just rolling. But for us, if you notice, in my case, Black history is every single day, 365 days. And how about this? I'm living in a black skin, so I'm just telling you my story. This is Phil Dixon, and I'm coming live to you tonight from Kansas City, from the greater metropolitan Kansas City area, talking about these historic feats that happened throughout history. So I still start about 1 minute in, so I'm going to get ready to go to work now. And so let's go ahead and start with February 1st, 1909. Okay, the North Adams Transcript newspaper reported that John Bud Fowler is seriously ill at the home of his sister in Fort Plain, New York. And at that time, Fowler held the reputation of being the greatest living ball player of his race. And that was Bud Fowler. And he would be sick for 5 more years and pass away on February the 26th, 1913. And of course, he is today a member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and based on the 2021 induction. And it just so happened that as a researcher and historian, I was part of the committee that submitted his name, and that was John Bud Fowler. So, boy, happy to celebrate him today. All right. So his name was mentioned in the newspaper as the greatest living ball player of his race, and that was in 1909. Now, anyone, if you're joining me here today, I say, Reverend Carmine, how you doing? You're the first one in here, and hoping to get some more people here. And so if you're joining, I just finished talking about Bud Fowler. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bud Fowler, but he was certainly considered the greatest living ball player of his race. And he was sick at his sister's home. And by the way, I have been to where Bud Fowler is buried in Fort Plain, New York. So I was there last March, been a little bit over a year, and took a funeral on the site of his monument that was erected later by the Society of American Baseball Researchers. All right, let's go to another fact. This is going to be February 1st, 1918. Members that formed the roster of the 1918 Chicago American Giants are announced with the following players. Bruce Petway and George Dixon are catchers. I like that Dixon name. That sounds awfully familiar to me. Dick Redding, Dick Whitworth, and Tom Wilson were named as pitchers. Leroy Grant, Bingo DeMoss, Bobby Williams, and Bill Francis were the infielders. And now they had the great outfield. That was Frank Duncan, Pete Hill, and Jess Barber. And I do want to talk about Dick Whitworth, because Dick Whitworth is somebody that I tried to once again to put on the baseball map. And in my book, if you have that, the book that came out in 1992, I had a number of photographs of Dick Whitworth, but actually came from his son, Roger Whitworth, who was a graduate of Kansas University. And he was a great track guy. He also played in the marching band at KU. And so Whitworth's widow was still alive, and she died shortly before then. She was still living in Kansas City, Kansas, off 5th Street. So I had great interaction with the Whitworth family, and was able to elevate him in ways that he had not been talked about before then. So that's Dick Whitworth. He lived in Kansas City, Kansas, and started with the Pullman Colts along with Bullet Rogan, but he passed away in St. Louis. But he was born in St. Louis. I'm not sure how he ended up in Kansas City, Kansas, but he did, and then he passed away in St. Louis. He went back to St. Louis. Dick Whitworth. And I've written about him in almost every book I've ever written. Okay, so all right, and so I'm going to go to the next fact, and this one is it's a follow-up to a story that I gave on January 25th. You want to go back and read that. And here's the follow-up report. And it came from the Latimer County News Democrat. And the story I broke on the 25th of January was Eugene Davis. He shouted, "I'll kill you yet. I'll kill you when I get out of prison." Those were the words heard by County Attorney Frank Watson following Edwards' arrest for shooting at Gus Davis, the manager of the McAllister Go Devils baseball team and manager of the East Side Pool Hall. Yeah. Armed with a 45, Davis shot 4 times and missed every time as the Go Devils manager ducked and dodged and escaped. So the shooter was back in court here on February the 1st, 1934. And Davis, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 2 years in the state prison. And maybe I'm going to follow up on that story later on. All of this took place over in McAllister, Oklahoma. I haven't been there. I've been all over Oklahoma, but haven't been to McAllister yet. So maybe if I get down there somewhere, I'll be able to talk about that. All right. Let's go to another fact. Now, this guy had played a role in my life. It's February 1st, 1944. Paul L.D. Blair was born in Cushing, Oklahoma. And how about this? In 1967, Blair led the American League in triples with 12. And he appeared in 6 World Series. How about that? Now, the way he played a role in my life, when I was growing up, my parents got a divorce. And so my father got remarried, and he remarried a lady that was from Cushing, Oklahoma. And she knew the Blair's family. So whenever the Orioles would come to town, she would take me to the ballpark, and she didn't buy those bleacher seats, man. She bought those good seats, the box seats. And so most of the time when I went to the ballpark, and we were talking about the old municipal stadium in Kansas City, I sit in the cheap seats out in the outfield. They cost $1, right? So anyway, so my stepmom would take me to see the Orioles, man, and the Orioles were just, man, they were just a great team at that time. I think at one point they had beat the Kansas City Royals like 20 times in a row. The Royals could never find a way to defeat the Orioles. And of course, so I got a chance to see Paul Blair. And what I will say is that Blair, at age 21, he married a 19-year-old lady by the name of Evelyn Cohen. And that was April 16, 1965 in Elmira, New York. And Blair had just finished the season with the Elmira Pioneers, where he led the average. And the marriage took place at the local AME Zion Church. Now, guys, you can hear a lot about baseball, but a lot of times, people don't spend time telling you about these ball players and their marriages. You don't hear that. You don't hear about the churches they attended. You don't hear that kind of history. You might hear about what college they went to or high school or something like that, but you don't hear some of the intimate details about their life. And so I'm happy to give that to you here. So we have some people joining in. Reverend Carmine from Lee Summit. And somebody says, see if anybody else wants to join in here. Okay, so if you're listening, by all means, just let me know where you're joining from. That's always important. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 facts about this one baseball player who played for Wilkes-Barre in the minor leagues, but he went on to be more renowned as a basketball player. So let's go ahead and talk about this baseball player who played a lot of basketball. Maybe you've heard of him. It was my pleasure to interview him many years ago. He's passed on now, but he was driving a cab in Chicago when I talked to him many years ago. So let's go. February 1st, 1947, Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton. You heard of him before? He dropped 10 points in a Dayton Metropolitan's 53-48 win over the Evansville Rockets in Evansville in a game played at the Agola Tabernacle. And that was Elwood Parsons' team. Now, Elwood Parsons was a promoter in that area around Dayton, Ohio. He bought a lot of Negro League games to that area and promoted those. And also, he was owner in this basketball team that Sweetwater Clifton played with. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him. I think it was like 1983 when I went to Dayton. I was going through there doing research and stopped and had lunch with him and had many conversations with him after that. But I remember at lunch, he took me some swanky restaurant, and he said, whatever you want, you can buy. And so I said, well, I'll just take a hamburger. And I'll never forget, guys. He said, you're the only person I know will come to a restaurant that's this swanky and then ask for a hamburger. So that was Elwood Parsons. And by the way, Elwood Parsons was a cousin to Olin Jelly Taylor. All right. So this guy, it's these are facts that you won't get anywhere else. Just know that. All right. So if you're joining me, guys, let me know where you're joining from. Okay. And let's see. Somebody says Jordan. Is it Jordan? No. It's not Jordan. Jordan tried to play baseball, but actually Nate Sweetwater Clifton was one of the greats, and who I don't think he ever played Negro League baseball. I could be wrong, but he certainly played basketball and he played minor league baseball. All right, so let's keep going with Nate Sweetwater Clifton and Jordan. One of these days, I will focus on Jordan and his baseball career. Okay, so February 1st, 1948. Now the other one was Nate Sweetwater Clifton in 1947. So now this is February 1st, 1948. Sweetwater Clifton dropped 19 points and took all the scoring honors in his team, the Columbus Mariners, as they crushed the Zanesville team of the All-American Professional Basketball League by a 57-49 score at Columbus, Ohio. In winning, it became the Sweetwater Clifton's team their 12th victory in 12 days. No, I think it was the 12th victory in 10 days is what it was. And also, their team went by two names that year. They also still went by the Dayton Metropolitans or the Columbus Mariners. All right. So that's Nate Sweetwater Clifton. Okay. Now, we're going to stay with Nate Sweetwater Clifton on the same day, February 1st, 1949. All right. Nate Sweetwater Clifton stepped up in the absence of Reese Goose Tatum, who had missed the train to Stockton, California. And he scored 20 points in the Harlem Globetrotters' 59-47 victory over the House of David basketball team at Stockton, California. Clifton took 13 shots in the game and made 10 baskets. How about that? So that's Nate Sweetwater Clifton. Have you heard of him before? Do you know anything about him? Well, I tell you what, guys, he's one of the people that I like to talk about. And I especially like to talk about him because I had the pleasure of interviewing him. And as a historian, that was quite an honor. And it puts me in an elite group among people who talk about the Negro Leagues in baseball because I did interview Mr. Nate Sweetwater Clifton. Now, I've never interviewed Michael Jordan, but hey, you know what? Hey, he's still around. I'm still around. Hey, we may get that done. All right. So that's Nate Sweetwater Clifton. Three dates in a row, 3 years, and he was doing something every year on February the 1st. All right. And so I got one more for you that I'm going to go and this is a guy by the name of Daryl Thomas. And he was drafted as the #1 pick by the Houston Astros on February 1st, 1969 in the winter amateur draft. So he was #1 pick for the Astros in the winter amateur draft. Now, he would go on to play 15 seasons in the American and National Leagues, appearing in 1,597 games. And maybe you had a chance to see him play. Got 15 seasons, that means he's playing well into the 80s, all right? Drafted in 1969. His name was Daryl Thomas. And he was a product of Susan Miller Dorsey High School in Los Angeles. And he was the #1 overall pick that year. And the Astros used their June pick, and they were able to select 2nd overall, and they selected a pitcher by the name of J.R. Richards. And I had the pleasure of meeting J.R. Richards. Didn't meet Daryl Thomas, but I met J.R. Richards. Unfortunately, we lost Mr. Richards, and he's passed away now. But he was a guy who suffered from a stroke right in the heart of his career, and he was leading the National League in strikeouts. Just a phenomenal individual and just a great person to talk to. Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing him on 2 occasions, and interviewing him on one. So that was J.R. Richards. So, guys, that kind of does it for me tonight. I will say this: if you're enjoying these broadcasts, guys, please subscribe. We're trying to build a network here of really dedicated people who enjoy history. So, once again, if you like this, not only subscribe, share it, share the broadcast. People need to know that there's something out here that is serious that's going on. And so, right in the middle of my broadcast, and I always hate that because it interrupts my broadcast. So, anyway, I don't know what they're calling about. However, I will say, hopefully, you can still hear me and everything. Can you still hear me, first of all? Somebody hit a yes or hit a heart or something like that. Just let me know because I've got two calls while I'm doing this broadcast. Somebody hit a yeah, send a heart or something like that if you can still hear me. Um, so yeah, somebody do that if you're in here and just let me know you can still hear me. Um, so can you hear me? I can't tell if you can or not. So anyway, hopefully you can as I wrap up tonight. So this has been the January 1st Black History Month edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Okay, they said yes, they can hear. Great. So this day in Black Baseball History. So guys, if you really want to know a whole lot about history, by all means, go back and listen to some of my old broadcasts. I've been, actually, I was looking the other day. I started back, and I've got about 320 broadcasts. And I think I have like six 6,800 minutes or something like that of baseball dope. We'll just say that, right? And so I remember years ago, I would tell you this story, and then I am gone for the evening. Hank Bauer, who used to be the manager of the Baltimore Orioles, he had played for the New York Yankees under Casey Stengel. Um, let's see, he was a scout at that time when I was working in Major League Baseball. This at that particular time, I was writing newspaper articles for the Kansas City Call, so I had a Major League press pass, and they used to set us in an area that was not with these guys who were like with the Baseball Writers Association. We were in another open air booth. Those guys were behind the air conditioning. They treated them real well, and us guys, we were almost like peons, but we were out here in where well, we had fresh air. We didn't have air conditioning. So it was a hot night. We'd be up in that booth and we'd get a sweat just like the ball players would on the field. But Hank Bauer, he did not like the air conditioner. So Hank would come out and sit with us. And Hank would talk to me, and he was always fascinated by how much I knew about baseball and how much I like to talk about it. He told me some of the greatest Elston Howard stories that you ever want to hear. And Hank, would see me sometime in the hallway, and he would always ask me, say, "Are you still collecting that baseball dope?" They called it baseball dope. We don't use that term to describe history anymore, but a generation or a couple of generations before, they called it baseball dope. And so that's what I've been collecting all these years, and I've been the author of several books. And when I get off tonight, I'm going to work on editing one of my books, right? And so, guys, and also if you want to continue following me, I do have a webpage that's nlbalive.com. NLB Alive, that stands for Negro League Baseball, or nlbalive.com. And there I also post things, and I make my books available too. So, well, that it does it for me, guys. I got interrupted twice tonight, so hopefully they didn't throw my broadcast off too much. So somebody said, are you a Lakers fan? I'm not specifically a Lakers fan, but I do know a lot about the Lakers. I used to be quite the baseball card collectors. Actually, I have a basketball set that from 1969, a complete one, and actually I'm only missing one card, and that's the Lou Alcindor, who of course you know came Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I'm missing just that one card. I need to go ahead and buy it because every year it keeps going up and up and up. But that's the last one. So if somebody wants to lend me $1,000, I'll go buy the card today. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you for joining me. And I'm just a fan of baseball for sure, football, basketball. but I'm certainly a fan of American history as it relates to African Americans. So this month you're going to get some great stuff that I'm going to be talking about. All right. So I guess that's going to do it for me. I'm right at 20 minutes, and that's when I like to get out of here. I'll see you tomorrow, guys, with another edition, and we're going to have some great facts for you. I'm already looking here. Man, I've got basketball again. No more Sweetwater Clifton though, but I certainly have some things from Ted Strong and who played baseball, and Hallie Harden. I don't know if you heard of him. We're gonna be talking about him. And how about a guy named Jesse Askew? So we talk about him tomorrow too. So all right, guys, thank you, and you have a nice evening. And I'll see you real soon. All right, this is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History, and this is the Black History Month, February 1st edition. Bye.